thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so I just to get started, I think like maybe for those who don't know who you are or like are not aware of you, um, just maybe a quick like minute, 2 minute origin story of like your journey to becoming a professional, like and some of the key moments maybe that got you
Yeah.
to where you were right now.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, like you said earlier, my name is Clay Dimick. Right now, I play for Charlotte Independence, which is in USL League One. Before this was 3 years in USL Championship. But before that, I had a different road than most professionals, I would say, especially American professionals. I went to a small Division II school, so choosing that school, I knew it would be hard for me to make it to the next level. But I chose that school, Belmont Abbey, because I knew if I went there, I'd be able to develop as a player and a person. And I thought, like, if I was able to become a better person and a better player by playing every minute in every game, then I think like that was really valuable for my development as a person and player, like I said. So coming out of college, I knew that it'd be tough to get to where I am, but I was just hungry for a chance and for an opportunity, and I was always telling myself to control what I can and become the best player in the meantime until I get my chance. And then finally, I was brought into preseason with Charlotte Independence in 2019. I did well and showed that I was consistently at the level throughout the preseason, and then signed my first pro contract there, and they continued to sign me after that, and then now I'm here in my fourth year with the Independence, which is pretty cool as well because, as you know, Matt, it's like hard to stay in one place for this long in the pro game. So I think it's special for my family and I to be able to stay in a place that's home to us.
100%, man. And I think that in itself is an accomplishment as well as staying at one team for as long as you have. A lot professional athletes know that every season there's new guys, new players, new competition, and for you to you know beat out guys on a consistent basis for years is a testament to your hard work and all that sort of stuff.
Mm.
Um, but so what made you what was going on in your head when you chose maybe a smaller school compared to some of the other ones when going to college and just guide us through some of your thought process there.
Yeah, so obviously for American kids, choosing where you go to college is a huge decision. And I remember when I was in high school, my club team, I was the one of the only guys looking at Division II schools. The other guys were looking at Division I schools, and I had looked at a few like Stetson down in Florida, and then University of Alabama in Birmingham. And the coaches were really interested, but at the same time, it was kind of like I would just be another guy there. I wasn't going to be the main guy or come in as a freshman and play right away. And I remember sitting down with my club coach and my parents and saying like the best way to develop is getting game minutes as well as going somewhere that you're going to be valued. So that was my main reason for deciding a smaller school that was in a good conference in Division II, was to go somewhere where I can go in and develop and play right away. I didn't want to wait like 1 or 2 years to play in games because I feel like that would have stunted my growth in a way. I know it works for some players, but I feel like for me that was the most valuable thing, is to go somewhere I was wanted to come and have an impact on the field right away.
100%. And I think it's obviously a difficult decision as well. I think seeing some of your peers maybe going to bigger schools, but I think that obviously I don't know if you what your opinion on this, but game time, especially for a soccer player and like team sport athletes, is irreplaceable. No amount of individual training will replace that. And so that I'm assuming was again a big part of your decision, and I guess it worked out. You know, how was your experience at that school?
Yeah, well, like you said, I think that's like one of the most important things for somebody's development in whatever sport it may be, is getting thrown into game situations because, like you said, there's only so much you can do in training and individual training, and it's at one point or another you're gonna have to progress, and that's the only way you get that is in game situations. So my time there was really good. I played in every game, played multiple positions, which helped me as well be versatile at the pro level. And I made really good friends and stuff off the field. So overall, it was a good fit. I met my wife there, so that's always a plus.
Hmm.
But yeah, on the field, I would say like being able to play multiple positions, um, learn the game at a good level from game time and game situations. It's kind of like second to none in teaching and growing you as a player.
Yeah, 100%. And so, um, I mean, at school. um, and developing through college and through that time period, was there anything you were doing specifically um, to improve? Were there certain aspects of your game? Was there anything that you did maybe differently from others that helped you make that jump to the professional level?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that I'm big on is controlling what you can, and I think one of those things is like being the fittest and uh, fittest athlete you can be. So whether that's like the running side of it or sprinting or in the gym, I wanted to control all those aspects so that way I knew that I had done everything I can to prepare myself to be the best athlete. So I was pretty serious about that, and then on the ball. Like I said, I was playing multiple positions, so it was more functional training, like really specific. Like I wouldn't go out there and just shoot around or juggle with some teammates. Like I would go out there and work on functional stuff that I would see in a game. So if it's an outside back, then crossing the ball or building out of the back, center back, entry passes, stuff like that. So it's really specific training, and I learned that through my coach in college to kind of make the most of your time, whether that's in the gym or on the field.
Yeah, training, having a purpose to the training definitely makes it, I think, more effective
Yeah.
in the long run. Like you said, there's no point in doing things that you're not going to see in a game. Obviously, there's different aspects that you want to develop, but I think this having the self awareness to know what you're going to see. And so, when you're thinking about, I guess, being the fittest in the on the gym physical side of things, what were kind of like cues to you in terms of what to work on and what you thought you need to get better on, like what you would focus on in the gym?
hmm Yeah, so the same thing as on the field, I did in the gym. I didn't want to go into the gym and just become like a bodybuilder because it's not going to help us too much. So it was like really functional movements that would help me get better as a soccer player. Because for as long as we're going to play this game, like we want to be the best soccer players we can be. And I think the time in the gym is going to add up to that. So what you're doing in the gym is going to show on the field. And then the other part of it is I just wanted to get my diet and hydration and what I was putting in my body right because I knew if I was going to train this hard and go for my goal of becoming a professional soccer player, um, every part of me needed to act like a pro, and so my hydration and diet was a big piece of that as well.
Yeah, no, and diet is very important in terms of just overall, obviously recovery and energy, mental clarity, stuff like that. Um, and so on the opposite side, in terms of your skill, the actual soccer side of things, what sort of things did you look for, or like what were cues on that side of things for you to kind of stay after and train a little bit longer or get the extra sessions in? What were some things that you did to kind of decide what you needed to do extra
A
for?
big piece of that was breaking down film and with my coach in college because he knew what my goal was to go beyond college and play as a pro. So we were pretty honest and at times brutal, but it helped out in the film sessions. And then we would take the see myself in games and see what I can improve on, and then go and make a session that I would do before practice, maybe for 15, 20 minutes, or after practice for 15, 20 minutes, and be like, all right, my crosses in this game weren't as good as I would like them to be. So let's work on first time crosses into the box, or my entry passes into the forwards were kind of off. So let's work on that. So stuff like that, being able to sit down and watch yourself on film, and then go and do stuff that's really specific that you want to improve, helped out a lot.
And so how much did kind of putting your ego aside play or allow for that to happen effectively?
Yeah, a lot, and I think it still happens every day when we watch film. Like you can think you have a good game, and then we always say like film never lies. So you go and sit down and
Yeah,
watch film, and you're just getting ripped apart, and you're like, dang, I thought I had
yeah,
a good
yeah,
game.
yeah.
Like we won 3-0, but if you're honest with yourself and put your ego aside, like you said, and really think about what you can improve and sit down and watch yourself, there's always stuff you can get better at. So yeah, it definitely plays a role.
100%, man. And so how did you notice going from college to professional? What was the biggest difference you noticed about that jump, or was there a jump in your opinion?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things I noticed was the mentality of all the guys. Um, it wasn't just guys that were there to enjoy it, but as well as like this is their livelihood. This is how they provide for their families. A lot of them had kids. A lot of them had wives. So it's like if they're not out here performing, they might not have as good of a contract next year. They might be out of contract next year. So it was just kind of like a dog eat dog mentality, and it was like you had to bring it every day. And I was thankful for that my rookie year because we had a really talented team, and you could just see it every day. And I think it makes you be at your best too. It's like you can't take a day off, but mentally it's something that you have to be ready for every day.
Yeah, 100%. And so, how did you find your first year difficult?
Yeah, at times I did. For me, my debut came like a couple months, so it took a while to get my first game. Um, so in that time when I wasn't playing right away, it was difficult because you're saying in your head like, oh, I'm training really well. I'm in early every day doing the extra stuff. Like when will I get my break? And then like the bigger thing you should be worrying about though is like when you do get your debut, is like you have to take your chance. And I remember the captain of our team at the time and a couple of the veteran guys who have played in big leagues. They're like, don't worry, like your chance will come, but when you get it, just be prepared to take it. Because if you take your chance, then you can run with this game. So mentally, it's like at the time back then, I was thinking, dang, when am I gonna get my chance? And then I remember the day that I was gonna get my debut. I just told myself, like, just take your chance. This is what you prepared for. So it is definitely tough though at times because you're going from an environment in college where you're probably the best player in your team, and then you're going into the professional environment where you're just training, like you're just a training player at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. And so, yeah, no, it's definitely, I think, difficult for a lot of guys, that transition period between college and professional. Some guys are lucky enough to have a smooth transition. Some guys, it takes a little bit longer, but I think, you hit it right on the head where it doesn't matter when the opportunity comes. It could come in the last 10 games of the season,
Mm-hmm.
but if you do well, you could play the last 10 games of the season and move into the next season,
Right.
in a different position than you were. And so I think that's really important for young athletes or like athletes in general to focus on is just being ready, you know.
Mm.
And I think that also what's like your I don't know what your opinion on it is, but in terms of like the mental health side of the game, focusing on when am I gonna get this opportunity, like when is it gonna come, as opposed to just focusing on being prepared.
Yeah.
How big of a difference does that make for mental health as well amongst
Yeah.
athletes?
I think that's huge too. I mean, I've played, and I'm sure you've played with guys who are so talented, and their potential is off the charts, but mentally, it's a whole different game for them, and it's tough to see because the mental part of it plays maybe like 80% of it. If you're not in it mentally and you're kind of thinking about other stuff or you have troubles with your mentality, then you might not ever take your chance. And so I think it's definitely something that is talked about more, thankfully, but it should definitely be learned about and be comfortable talking about because if you're not mentally in the right state of mind, then it'll be tough to perform physically.
100%. And and how did you notice kind of the mental side of the game moving uh, into the professional level? Was it more mentally challenging, or did you notice more of just physical kind of tactical stuff was the
Yeah,
biggest challenge?
yeah, definitely the physical and tactical stuff was there, but the mental thing is probably the biggest difference and like the biggest challenge because uh, I remember one of the veteran guys who would tell me like this career goes up and down like a roller coaster, and don't get too high when you're playing really well, and don't get too low if you don't play a game in 2 months. And the guys who are level headed and kind of ride the wave no matter what are the guys who will make it. So I think mentally it's tough to stay like that because when you're playing really well and starting every game, you would probably think, oh, I can just coast through training and stuff. And the minute you do that, then somebody takes your spot. And then vice versa, if you're training like crazy hard and you burn yourself out when you're not playing your game, then that's a battle in its own. So I think for me, mentally, it's just a reminder to do what I've been doing that got me here, to have confidence in myself because if you don't believe in yourself, it's tough for other guys too. And then to always be the same person, not just player, but always be the same person in the locker room and on the field, regardless how you are doing as a soccer player in general.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And is there anything that you kind of focus on daily, I would say, or weekly or whatnot, to kind of keep you on track, keep you focused? Like, do you have like a notebook where you write down things? Do you kind of take mental notes, or is it kind of just like you have it, down to a science in your head.
Yeah, I actually have notes on my phone. Like if I were to show you my phone on the notes, I have notes in there that's different from like film or practices. And one thing that is a good practice I recommend is if you feel like you had a bad day, whether it's training or in a game, to go back and write the good things you did because it's really really easy for people to remember bad things about yourself. So if you missed a tackle and led to a goal or something, like it's really easy to keep replaying that in your head. But it's hard for us as humans at times to think about the good things we did. So on days where you're feeling not so good about your performance, I think it's important to write the good things you did, um, because those negative thoughts, those live in your head all the time. So to remind yourself that you didn't do all things bad is something that I've tried to practice throughout the years, and I've found some benefit to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really valuable as well. In terms of like, plateaus, and like, times when you've been training very hard, but, nothing's, you don't feel like you're getting better. You don't feel like you're getting fitter. You don't feel like, you know, it's translating on the field yet.
Yeah.
How, like, do you have any kind of like consistency, like tips or something for another athlete that might be struggling with a plateau at the moment, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they just have to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I think those are like those situations and those times as in an athlete's career are really they're hard to get through, but they're also really real. Like they happen all the time to us. We think mentally, hey, I've been training every day and I'm not really seeing any improvement or I'm not seeing any benefit to my training. But the main thing that I try to remind myself is this saying like control what you can and be 1% better every day. So whether you just go into training thinking, okay, the one thing I'm gonna focus on today is like making sure I have a clean touch every time I touch it with my weak foot, and leaving training thinking, okay, well, I don't really think anything else is training, but at least in my head, I know that I took a clean touch with my weak foot every day, or whatever that may be, or just trying to get that 1% each and every day, or that one thing in your head each and every day checked off. It can kind of get you out of that plateau and realize, okay, I'm making progress, even if it's slow. I just have to trust the process that this is what the climb looks like as an athlete.
100%. And I guess I think it'd be interesting also to get your perspective on what it's been like, since you've been at Charlotte for 4 years. How has it kind of changed now that you're a leader on the team and you're the captain of the team? How has that
Yeah,
kind of changed for you? Do you feel like you have more responsibility? Is it pressure? Do you enjoy it? What's your perspective on that?
yeah. So the main thing that I wanted, so when our coach told me that he wants me to come back and be the leader of the team and kind of take on a leadership role, obviously I was excited right away, but I know that it's not just like wearing the armband on a game day or being called the captain. There's like a lot of hard work that goes into it because not only are you going to have to lead this group of players that players that are playing every minute, players that are not even making the 18, players that are on the bench, players that are injured. Like you have to be able to relate to all of them, and I'm thankful for my experiences because I can do that. I feel like, so that's one of the tough parts is being able to relate to the people who may be struggling at the time and making sure they're still bought into the main picture. Um, and then on an individual standpoint, like you need to make sure that you're leading by example, not just as it's your voice talking, but also like something I want to hold myself to is be the first one in, always doing extra work in the morning before training starts. Making sure I'm doing the same things I was doing when I wasn't playing any minutes in 2019 to when I'm playing every minute in 2022. I want to be able to say like I stayed consistent and didn't change my ways just when stuff got or more responsibility got given to me. So that's something that I took on individually and made a promise to myself that I want to keep getting better as a player, as a leader, as a captain, as a person in the locker room, and then be able to relate as a leader to all the guys, whether they're playing, whether they're not playing, whether they're injured, whatever it may be. So there's definitely more responsibility, but I think it's a huge privilege to have that pressure and that stuff on your shoulders, and I'm thankful for it. I think it's a really unique opportunity to have.
And so, in terms of relating to your players, what are kind of things that you do as a captain to try to foster that locker room, have that good vibe in within the locker room amongst the guys?
Yeah. So one of the things is like making sure there's not really many cliques on the team or groups on the team, because if things aren't going well for one guy in that group, then he might try to bring other guys down, whatever it may be. So I try to bounce around groups, bounce around the guys, and make sure that I'm talking to everybody and making sure everybody knows that I'm taking out intentional time for them, or asking them to go to lunch after practice, taking a group of them and going to lunch, or inviting them to train early with me before training, stuff like that. And just, I think, spending time intentionally with them and creating those relationships, and making them realize that I'm not just going to stick to two or three guys, but my role as the captain is to make sure everybody's bought in, and kind of keep the locker room as one, and not have it divided. Because when things are going well, that's really easy. But as soon as you lose one or two games, fingers start getting pointed, and things start getting talked about. So that's important to remember as well.